Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream session titled How May I Serve You Today? Ask Me Anything. This is a session where you can participate and, well, as you might imagine, ask me anything. I have a live Zoom call that is operational right now. You can get there by going to cliffravenscraft.com/join, and I would love to have you participate. And today we are going to be joined first by Cassandra. Let me bring Cassandra up here. There is a little button. Cassandra, if you want to unmute yourself, I am ready and to kick things off
Awesome.
here. Cassandra, how can I be of service to you today?
Oh, wow. Okay, Cliff, thank you so much for hosting this live, number one. I'm such a big fan of you and Stephanie. And really, I have kind of a small, big question. What are some small things you do to keep your mindset positive and aligned every day? Like those micro things that you do.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't call any of them micro, but I understand the heart of your question. The first thing instantly that comes to my mind is meditation. So today, I'm pulling up an app on my phone. It's called the Insight Timer. Today was my 1,260-second consecutive day of meditation without missing. Meditation is something that I do typically no less than 10 minutes a day, and some days anywhere between 40 minutes to as much as an hour and a half to 2 hours. On average, if I'm just fully out there, probably about 30 minutes a day on average of meditation. And I use a multitude of different types of meditation. Some is just pure silence, some of it's yoga nidra, some of it is loving kindness, some of it is transcendental, some of it is raha yoga. There are so many different forms of meditation, and I don't have any certain schedule, but what I can tell you is a daily practice of meditation has radically altered my experience of every moment of my life. It is the number one thing that I have done to maintain a consistent and persistent positive mindset. There are other things, but I'm going to pause here, ask you what lands for you there. Have you experienced it? Any other further questions on the topic of meditation?
I mean, I definitely agree with that answer, and I can see that's a lot. I love it. But if I can push it a little bit farther, you and Stephanie know what it's like to have kids, work, being passion projects, doing creative things. And sometimes it can feel like you don't have a lot of time to put into yourself. So is there anything specifically, or maybe just like right when you first wake up, that doesn't take I'm not saying it doesn't take a lot of energy, but maybe it doesn't take a lot of time, but is an important like practice or tool for mindset overall?
Yes. The answer to that question would be this thing called meditation.
I love it. So kind of carrying that through everything you're doing.
Well, I'm not being facetious, but being very. I mean, your question is, wow, okay, Cliff, it's great that you are averaging, 30 plus minutes a day on average of meditation. But I have lots of things going on in my life. You're aware that things, with kids and other activities and all the things of life, what could I do, even if it was just something in the morning that wouldn't take much time? And the answer, the easiest, most simplest practice that I mean, there's other things. By the way, let me just throw another phrase. Morning pages. Have you ever heard of morning pages?
Yes.
Okay. Morning pages is an incredible process that is definitely going to help you maintain a positive mental attitude. And if you started your day with morning pages, it's certainly going to benefit you. It's one of the things that I incorporate from time to time, certainly not at the same consistency that I do meditation, although there are times when I'm doing morning pages. Morning pages is meditation. For me, it is one of maybe 40 different variations of meditation that I incorporate. But if I'm going to sit down and write 3 pages of stream of conscious thought into a journal, that is focused attention, that is very directed and for a purpose. And that is one of my forms of meditation. But 3 pages of stream of conscious meditation, or I'm sorry, of morning pages, will take up more time and energy than meditation in its simplest form could. So I'm going to share with you, let me just paint a picture for you. Let's just say for just a moment, I have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I have to be out the door at 5:30 in the morning. And I'm going to be in the car and I'm going to be driving for 8.5 hours to my destination out of town. And there, as soon as I get into town, I'm scheduled to have a brief lunch with some friends. Let's just say, during that drive, get stuck in traffic and show up a little bit late. And so lunch is even further delayed and even a little bit more rushed. And then let's just say right afterwards, I go and do the thing that is fully engaged, fully relational, fully present with my friends. Whether I'm helping them do something or we're doing something for fun together, but I am fully engaged in the presence of those people. And that's for, let's just say, the next 4.5, 5 hours. And then right afterwards, it's immediately we're going to go and have dinner together, or we're having, and not to mention, let's just say they invite me, hey, Cliff, after dinner, would you be willing to lead a workshop or some sort of session on and teach on this thing that came up in a recent podcast episode you did? And I'm like, okay, sure. And so on the spot, I'm sitting there teaching. And let's just say we go out and we have this bonfire, and it's 11:45 at night, and we're just now heading back to the hotel, and it's been this incredibly long day. Now, that's a pretty action-packed day. Can you imagine in your mind me having a day like that?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So do you remember what I said? I need to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So,
Yeah.
so what I would do is I would set my alarm for 4:45 a.m. And my alarm would be on my watch, on my wrist. And at 4:45 in the morning, my alarm goes off. I do not get out of bed. But instead, I immediately hit the snooze button. Now, my watch currently has a 9-minute snooze on it. So I know that I'm going to be woke up at 4:45. I'm going to snooze my watch. And then as soon as I do, I am going to sit there, or actually not sit there, I'm going to continue to lay in my bed. I am not going to move a muscle. I am not going to roll out of bed. I am just going to lay there, head still on the pillow, with my eyes closed, but still not going back into a dream state, not going back to sleep, but intentionally, I will do one of 4 or 5 different types of meditation for 9 minutes that I could do right there laying in my bed, whether it's just focused on my breathing, whether it's repeating a mantra or an affirmation, or whether it's visualizing how I want my day to go, or whether it's just sitting in absolute pure silence, listening only to the noise of the fan or multiple fans in our bedroom that are going on in the room. And any one of these forms of meditation, 9 minutes goes by, my snooze alarm goes off on my watch again. Boom, it's time for me to get out of bed. I've now started my day with meditation.
I love it. Yeah, it's very grounded. You're right. It is the core to everything. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I mean there are a number of other practices that are conducive to a positive mindset. Certainly you can be more intentional about the kind of content that you're consuming. You can be intentional about the content that you intentionally choose not to consume. There are conversations and people that you enjoy having conversations with that uplift you and help encourage a positive mindset. And then there are people and conversations and gossip that can pull down your mindset. And so I could probably come up with at least 15, 20, or 30 other things that would help you maintain mindset on a positive basis. But what just came out, I would never discount the absolute power of meditation. And I would make it a goal to investigate at least what are 5 different types of meditation that would fit within my worldview and or my ability to practice with the amount of time that I'm willing to devote. And for me personally, I started out, I committed myself. I will meditate 3 to 5 minutes a day every day, and that's it. I never would ever give myself any grief if I sat down to meditate and I did it for 3 minutes. And even if I set a timer for 15 minutes of meditation, but 3 minutes in, all of a sudden an idea came to me and I went off and did something else. If I sat in 3 minutes of meditation, that 3 minutes literally has the ability to change the trajectory of my day. And so that's the one practice that stays with me for everything else. But I would encourage morning pages if you have the time. I would also encourage you to consume great books, great podcasts, great content, and from things that nourish your soul and your mindset and help you think positively. And then the other thing I would do is I would avoid mainstream media, advertising, marketing that's always telling you that there's so many things wrong with you and what you need to buy to fix you. I would avoid the mainstream media that tells you all of the problems that are going on everywhere and every position on this planet, because there's very little that you're going to be able to do to solve any of that. So why be aware of it and carry that energy with you all day? I would be very cautious of the social media timelines that I'm following. And I would do my best if I'm going to consume social media, I would train those algorithms to stop showing me negative stuffs, things that brings anxiety. I will go in and say, listen, don't recommend this profile, don't recommend this channel, don't recommend this creator if they actually share like car accidents or police chases or I'm just energetically anything that causes me anything other than absolute peace, love, and joy. I just avoid all of that. And so yeah, so I would make a case for avoiding all of that negative input. And then I would recognize that there's a great deal of influence that the energy of the people that I spend the most time with, the conversations I involve myself in, those have an impact on my mindset throughout the day. And so I would be very intentional about the people that I'm in relationship with. And sometimes you're in a position, some people have a day job and their coworkers are chosen for them, and you don't have the choice for that. But I certainly, in those situations, would be very cautious. Not cautious is not the right word. I'd be very intentional, is what I would be, about how I involve my focus and intention on the conversations that take place with those coworkers. And I would avoid gossip at all costs. And I think those are just the few things off the very top of my head that have enabled me to live a very incredibly consistent, positive life day to day. Is that helpful to you, Cassandra?
It definitely is, because even though, a lot of it I feel are things that I know and have learned the hard way or, discovered over time, but I really needed to hear that reaffirmation. Sometimes it's hard living in this world. You feel you instinctually know these things are wrong, or you've learned these things are wrong and bad for you, and you can feel it in your nervous system that it's bad for you, but everything out there and people around you are acting like it's normal. And that could be difficult, to navigate. And so I really needed to hear that today. So thank you.
Absolutely. And Cassandra, would you be willing to hear a little reframe of something that you just said that might help you and even lift up how you feel day to day?
Yeah, definitely.
So, what if the things that you are referring to that everybody normalizes, that they're the idea that they're wrong. They for example, I may somewhere within my day invest an hour to 2 hours on TikTok. And as a result of that, throughout that scrolling of the feed, there may be a number of things that are not necessarily beneficial to me. But if I label them wrong, like, oh my gosh, this is bad for me, this is wrong, in the event that I desire to participate in a scroll session through TikTok, now all of a sudden I'm feeling emotional states that kind of would lead a little bit towards guilt or shame. This is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. This is bad for me. I'm now going to experience negative consequences. Do you see how the label "these are wrong" might cause you to not experience the positive aspects? And what if this is another thing? What if doing some things that you might have previously perceived as wrong, or that you might have previously perceived as bad for you, and yes, I could maybe in full alignment agree that that might cause some suffering or some undesirable, inconvenient, and situations and circumstances in the way that you experience your mindset throughout the day. Even what if it's possible that it's not either right or wrong? And what if it's not bad for you? What if something that would be perceived as bad for you that actually does cause you to experience a deep level of suffering? What if that was the one thing that was actually needed to wake you up and remind you of just how hypnotized and in the rhythm of the default way of being in the world? What if what some people would label as bad might just be the thing that wakes you up? It's just like, what if actually consuming some content might put you in a negative state that might spiral into something else, and it becomes a domino effect, and at the end of the day you end up yelling at your kids and saying things that you might regret one day and all this other stuff, and you're at the end of, and yet that drives you, let's just say metaphorically, to your knees, and you say, oh my gosh, something's got to change. Do you see how that actually, that thing that you label, potentially could label as bad, actually was good overall to wake you up? Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's overwhelming once you kind of engage with the news like that and get in the trenches with it, right? And all of the media and stuff. And it is like a wake up call, or, for me it was like a wake up call, but I thought I had already gotten the call many times, but apparently I didn't.
Well, Cassandra, we often have these wake up calls, and we get lulled back into a hypnotic state. And I even have that. I I don't want you to think for a second that this guy over here, me, that I live in pure bliss all day every single day. Now, if you were to ask me, "Hey Cliff, how you doing?" Matter of fact, I think you did. Before we went live, you said, "Cliff, how are you?" And I don't know if you recall what I said. Do you recall the words I actually said when you asked me how I'm doing?
No.
Okay. Well, it's all it I've been saying the same thing for more than 10 years, actually close to 20 years. And the thing that I would tell you almost all the time, if you ask me how am I doing, I will tell you I have never been better, and it gets better every single minute of the day. And
Right.
my one of my great friends, Michael Stelzner, has often challenged me on that stake. He goes, "Cliff, that's not possible. And how can you say that? Is like, I know you to be an honest guy, but how can you say that in full integrity? Because that just can't be true. And I'm like, well, let me say this. When I actually say that statement, I am in a what I would call a state of consciousness that from that state of consciousness, my perception is that that is my truth. Now there may be it's very rare, but you may capture me on a Zoom call, and then all of a sudden I come to a meeting and you say, "Hey Cliff, how you doing?" And I might say, "You know what? I'm doing really well." And I don't say I've never been better because I may be in a lower level of consciousness. I may be in a reactionary state. I may have just experienced a handful of things that caused some sort of subconscious trigger of an emotional state and reactiveness inside of my program and conditioned mind that has triggered some fear, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of worry, a little bit of self-doubt. And now all of a sudden, piled on top of that, there was this unexpected, undesirable, inconvenient situation and circumstance that came out. And then another thing piled on, and then another thing piled on. And now it's time for this Zoom call. And you're asking me, Cliff, how you doing? In that state of consciousness, I'm not going to say, I've never been better. It gets better every single moment of the day. I will tell you, you know what? I'm doing really well. And then if you say, well, Cliff, with all of that, how can you say you're doing really well? Well, here's what I can tell you. I woke up this morning and the earth and the sun are the exact distance apart that kept me from burning to death and freezing to death overnight. So I've got that going for me. I woke up this morning and I recognize that my heart is still beating and there is still oxygen in the environment for me to breathe. I've got that going for me. I could go on and on. I can list an infinite number of things that are, in fact, going well for me. But instead, I will not in that moment be able to, with integrity, from that lower level of consciousness where I am in a mindset of fear and anxiety and self-doubt and low self-confidence or whatever, I will not be able to say to you from that perception, from that state of consciousness, I will not be able to say, I've never been better and it gets better every single minute of the day. Now, from the level of consciousness that I am right now, the truth of the statement is that even then, I have never been better and it still gets better every single minute of the day. Because in that lower level of consciousness, I'm labeling things as good and bad, right and wrong, and victims versus abuser and all this other stuff. But in reality, everything just is what it is. And I'm here experiencing the flow of life. And it's just an amazing thing. But sometimes I get so stuck in my personal story of how I want and desire everything to be, and it's outside of my control, and I wish I could control it. I want to control it. And in those states, when I'm resisting the flow of life, I'm at a lower level of consciousness, and I'm fighting against God and the universe. And I've never been able to win that fight. And so
No.
eventually I'll get out of that state. I will surrender my control. I will stop resisting the leaking roof, the additional bills that just showed up, the client that just decided to pause, I will eventually surrender my resistance to all of that and get back into a state of, wow, you know what? There may be, in my conscious awareness right now, if I think about it, there might be 7 or 8 things that I was labeling just a few moments ago, or maybe just a few hours ago. This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is bad, this is horrible, this is going to lead to this, blah, 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 blah. However, while there might be 8 things that I could point to cause me to feel that way, there has never been a time where there isn't an infinite number of things that are going well for me that far outweigh that. So, for example, let's just say if 7 of the 8 things that were on my plate were financially related, just hypothetically, somebody said, "Gosh, if you had $10 million, would that solve all of those problems and you would feel better?" And the answer is like, oh, yes. All right, great. I'll tell you what, $10 million, cut off both of your legs. If you cut off both of your legs, I will give you $10 million. How many people do you think would actually make that deal? Most people, let's just say perhaps 99.999% of people would say, no, I'd rather keep my legs than your 10. So what you're saying is that the ability to have your legs is more valuable than the $10 million. So do you see how many things are going well for you that far outweigh the few things that you're focused on, that you're perceiving and labeling as bad, and that you're resisting? And so once I get out of that lower state and I get back into this elevated higher state where I can see things from in a greater perspective, I recognize that even though I wasn't able to say it before, the reality is, even in the midst of those things, I truly had never been better, and it was every single minute getting better and better. And how can I say that? Well, the reality is that because of these circumstances, I'm now confronted with new opportunities to explore evolution of how I'm going to grow, how I'm going to be able to bounce back from things, how I'm going to be able to be more resilient. I'm going to be able to be more empathetic to other people that I didn't realize what it was like to not be able to have this, or when this goes wrong, I wasn't able to fully empathize with those people. Now I have a greater compassion for those. I will be less judgmental in the way that I think about people who are experiencing those things. Do you see how, even in that midst, the reality, the truth actually is that even in the midst of those challenges, I still have never been better, and it gets better every single minute of the day. But I still might not be able to say it from that lower level of consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. That gratefulness is such a powerful tool. And it's crazy that it can be so hard to forget that, or easy to forget that, I mean.
Yeah, it's very easy to forget all of these things. And the one thing that I've noticed, Cassandra, is this: everything that I've just said, there's nothing in here that you don't already know to be true. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and you've known these things, you've practiced many of these things. Some of these things, at a core essence, you know them to be true. What I've discovered is, because they're true and you know they're true, when you hear them, you just agree with them, and it's such a simple thing. And I do mean this. Meditating every single day is simple. And I'm not going to say it's easy. It can be easy, but it also can be very difficult. And a lot of that is determined by where we are in our level of consciousness at the time of just making. It's like, do I have time to meditate right now? But the process of meditating, the process of doing these things that we know that work, that we agree with, that it's like, this is amazing. We know these things, but it's not the knowing those things that actually changes us. It's not the knowing of those things that help us evolve or grow. It is the consistent, regular embodiment and integration of these things that shift us over time. But I just want to also say this: when we get into a higher state of consciousness, and where we used to live was a lot of anxiety and fear from every little thing that would pop up, and we would have moments of courage and confidence, and we get pulled back down and we go back up. If you create a daily consistent practice of things like meditation and all the other things that we just talked about earlier, when these become a daily practice for you, eventually you'll find yourself on a more consistent basis, hovering around acceptance, courage, willingness, unconditional love, gratitude, appreciation. This is where you will begin to live most of your time on what we call the levels of consciousness. But even then, it's very common for all of us to be triggered into those lower states. But it takes us, over time, it takes us less and less time to get out of the lower state and back up to our new place of homeostasis. did that land? Did that make sense as I described it?
Definitely. And I hear what you were saying earlier too about, sometimes it is necessary to kind of allow that stuff to rock your world in a certain way so that you can grow from it or learn from it, or maybe there's even a message that the universe is trying to present to you, or a lesson. And by getting back from those places, even though kind of the keys, it's like you really have to put the key in the door, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I will tell you some of the biggest areas of growth in my life were the things that rocked my world. I would say probably the day that I was in the hospital and I almost died after my first year of full-time self-employment. That was a significant wake-up call. And every single time when I had a situation or circumstance that put me where all of my peace and comfort in life was so tied to my financial success, every time there was, let's just say, a kink in the hose of the flow of economic wealth into our business, um, those were wake up calls. And every single time that I got triggered into lower levels of consciousness as a result of it, I grew exponentially out of them. And I also came away every single time with greater compassion, greater understanding, greater empathy, and not just for others, but ultimately for me. And of course, that's where it has to all begin. We have to have greater unconditional love and compassion and empathy for ourselves so that we could actually do, I think, what is the second greatest commandment of all, which is to love others as you love yourself.
I love that. And I'm so grateful for this conversation today. I mean, I really mean that. It's crazy that I found you through Twilight, of all things, and so many years later, during many transitions, big transitions in my life, I've been able to listen to you and Stephanie, and you're such a positive light in my world, so I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that. Stephanie and I are so incredibly thankful to just the following the nudge in our hearts to create some things. There were so many things that we did, investing countless hours in things like a television show like Lost, and then that led ultimately, it's like, okay, what are we going to do now? And covering chapter by chapter analysis of the Twilight Saga in a podcast, and it's like, what are we doing? And yet now looking back in hindsight, it's like, well, of course it was so that Cassandra could find us, and then it did, and also other people as well. But yeah, it's amazing. I'm thrilled that you resonated with us then. And one of the things that I love, Cassandra, is that since you've discovered us back in the Twilight days. You have witnessed quite the evolution of the guy that you know as Cliff Ravenscraft. Would you not agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I'd say when I would leave for a while and come back to listening, it rocked my world.
It's like, who is this guy? What is yes, it's been a fun journey, and I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying all of the choose your own adventure options that are afforded me each time I turn the page to a new day. It's just what a gift life is, and it's like I never know what adventure's coming next, but I've learned that life, the universe, that God, whatever is just there is such perfection in what is. And I am getting to a place where more and more I am living a frictionless life. And all I mean by that is that I'm not saying that I don't have things that a former version of me would have crumbled under the weight of. All I'm saying is that I don't sweat the small stuff, and pretty much anything and everything at this point would be labeled small stuff.
Right. Like kind of building that spiritual armor.
Yeah, armor would be armor is one metaphor to think of it, and yeah, that would serve. what what comes up for me and how it shows up for me, Cassandra, is it's not necessarily armor, because armor for me reminds me of the idea that there's some part of me that's vulnerable and that needs to be protected. And what
Mm,
and it's so for me, it's not so much that it's built armor to protect me, but what it is, it's a dissolution or a dissolving of all of the beliefs that have been conditioned into my mind, or the beliefs that I once believed that I needed to be protected from life.
okay. Yeah.
So I walk around, because there's a part of me that thinks that, if I feel peace because I've built up a strong armor, the limitless power of the universe to throw something at me that can crack that armor, I ultimately, I think that if I relied on armor for protection, there's still a layer of me that feels that I need protection. And if there's still a layer of me that feels that I need protection, then I still might fear that my armor isn't quite yet strong enough. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what came up for me when I heard that term armor. And so for me, it's more like, wow, what if I realized that I am one with the flow of life, and that life is not going to harm life. And what I once believed was harm was just a perception. There's a lot more under that statement than than you might want to go into right now, but who knows? I'm here for whatever.
Well, no, I agree. I see what you're saying. Like, there's a huge difference between building up a spiritual armor or living in a bubble. And you're right. Like, it's kind of a joke because God can burst that bubble at any moment. And so, trying to live in within the flow of everything and saying, I don't have to be prepared for it. I already am it. It's already happened in the future and the past, and everything I could want or be, I have already have and am. So that is so much more powerful, you're right, than trying to live in like a sanitized bubble.
Yeah. That was in perfect frequency of what I shared. So that was beautifully said.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I just it's a hard balance to strike, at least for me, at this time in my life. I've always had a lot more freedom when I was younger and you don't have kids or responsibilities and I could be up on the mountain. But in this, time, I'm trying to live with a foot in each world and it's hard. So
W-
it's
Well,
fascinating to me when I come across people like you who are really able to pull it off, like, and with grace. And it's like, okay, that's wisdom, that's come with really going into those realms and living in all of these realms simultaneously.
yeah, and that's the one thing I want to. I'm glad you brought that up. When I first experienced some of what I would call like a radical shift in what I label as a spiritual awakening back in 2021, there was a part of me that's like, you know what, I I want to leave the world of illusion and go off into the Himalayan mountains and find myself a cave and live this completely serene, bliss-filled, Zen, blissed out life, and just exist one with all. Yeah, I mean, there was a layer of me that it's like, this is what it means to be the ultimate spiritual highest level of consciousness. And ultimately, through a lot of growth and a lot of remembering of the purpose of what it means to be human, and the value of the human life and all of its various experiences, all of what is called the contrast of life. And also, when it comes to, we call it's there's this book, it's called The Map of Consciousness Explained by Dr. David R. Hawkins. And a lot of the things that I've been speaking about here, I've been speaking about something he calls the map of consciousness. And Cassandra, if you were to reach out to me via DM, because you and I DM each other on Instagram, but if you were to reach out to me on DM and say, "Hey Cliff, can you send me a link to that map of consciousness?" There's a diagram that I can share with you that's from Dr. David Hawkins, and it talks about, you know, the different levels of consciousness. And what it suggests, or what his book suggests, is that about 97% of all humanity lives at below 200 on the level of consciousness. And when you see the map of consciousness, you'll see exactly, you will not find anyone who would argue with that statement. And then when you see what's above 200 on the levels of consciousness, like, wow. And this book talks about the fact that there's more power that we have to influence the world the higher we are on the level of consciousness, because what we are experiencing in our own mind, in our own consciousness, is contributing to the mass consciousness of humanity. And one of the things that it says, if you truly want to impact the world, if you want to truly see the world experience more peace and more healing, the what he suggests is the best thing you could do is work on improving and lifting up your own level of consciousness. And there's this one statement in there, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's something like one person who vibrates at a level, or who calibrates at a level of 750, which might, let's just say if that's unconditional love, has exponentially, and it's like that person has more positive influence than, he might say, like hundreds of thousands of people or a million people on the planet. So it's not a linear progression. It as influence in the overall world as a universe that we live in. It's a fascinating read, and it might be something worth checking out if you resonate with it at all. Although, Cassandra, don't feel any pressure to go get a book just because Cliff read it. It's certainly not like
Well,
it's certainly not it's not going to read like Twilight, that's for sure.
okay, well, it's definitely interesting when you think about it too, in the context of your responsibility as an influencer, as a higher thinking person, and the responsibility that comes with that, or that some people disagree comes with that, and how it affects our culture and ourselves, our relationship to media. But also, I think that is a part of it. But I also think like being of service, right? And that's why I think it's so cool that you do this.
Absolutely. And what I will say is that I am only able to do this because of the work that I've done with my on myself. The work that I've done to devote to the practices that have helped remove so much of my conditioned belief about where my provision comes from, where my safety comes from, and all of that stuff. So many things that were beliefs and concepts and thoughts that I was habitually thinking and believing, and emotions that I was experiencing on a daily basis. I was there was it was so ego driven. I was so fearful, so worried, such that get here's the difference. Let's just say, it, if we go back, if we go back 8 or 9 years ago, I used to show up all the time, maybe just as much, if not sometimes, I don't know about more, but at least as much as I show up today. And it might have appeared to many that what I am doing is to show up to be of support and encouragement, and that's my primary and main focus, and there's no ego or anything in it for me. Whereas in reality, back then, so much of that showing up was done not because of an overwhelming desire to just show up and love and to share and to give, but because I felt like, wow, I'm so afraid that if I don't do a lot of things to get the attention of a lot of people, I won't get enough people to learn who I am, what I do, and buy my products and services. And I might not be able to put food on the table. And that's what drove me in the past to show up as frequently and as consistently as I did before, and oftentimes led to seasons of burnout over and over and over again. Whereas today, I can tell you, I have no ulterior motives. I just show up here. I'm doing this, and I will only do this for as long as it continues to make my soul sing. But because of the work that I've done, I'm here with no concern whatsoever about how this will benefit me at all. And that is an incredibly different way to experience life.
Yeah, and the thing I think that most, you just hit on it, that most resonates with your and Stephanie's content for me is that to show up authentically as yourself. And I have found success in the opposite of that so many times. So that's where, I've kind of come to full circle with it, where I'm like, no, you know what? It's time. What would Cliff and Stephanie say? They would say, show up authentically, but and keep putting the hard work in there, because that's where it matters, to yourself in the long run.
Yeah. Show up authentically is incredibly powerful. And to your point, there have been many times when I've experienced great success in not showing up authentically. And in fact, the world as a whole celebrates people who suppress their authentic self and buy into and play the game of the expectations and the agreed upon success metrics of things that are out of alignment with our authentic self. And I will tell you that there's a lot to be gained by playing the game of the world. And it reminds me of that same statement, is like, what is it to gain the whole world but to forfeit your soul?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think that's the most powerful thing recently that I've been taking from your guys' content.
Yeah, it's I'm honored that you listen. Do you listen to the Building a Life and Business Together podcast?
I do, even though I'm Signal and I don't have a business, I still listen.
Yeah, the title of the show honestly doesn't matter. We could label the show. Uh, you probably don't want to listen to this, but we've got nothing prepared for you today. That might be a good title for the podcast episode. I say that jokingly. We very much know what it's doing for people, and we love that it may not have mass appeal, but for those who crave authenticity, there's nothing we could do that is authentically true to ourselves that would not be appealing to those who really resonate with that podcast. And as soon as I became aware of that, I stopped all desire to perform in that podcast. And so as you're aware, we there is no performance, there's no trying to manage the perception of us or what we're doing or anything. It's just like, let's just be us. We'll hit record, and you get however long that episode is, you get that slice of the authentic, real, genuine who we are. And what I love about that podcast is it's helped spill over into my main podcast, the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, where I'm trying to dissolve all performance there as well.
Yeah, and it's fun. It was a kind of a huge moment for me this season, because when you guys dropped a portal into real rhythm, what life looks like and feels like when two souls drop into the sacred ordinary together, right? That episode came out, and I was in the middle of moving across the country, with three kids by myself. I'm like on this road trip, this epic road trip, and I'm in the hotel room and it's like 4 a.m. I'm trying to get up and get ready and not wake up the kids, so I couldn't put in AirPods to listen. So I just kind of laid there in bed and read the transcript on my phone of you and Stephanie talking. And it was just like exactly what I needed to start my day, getting onto the road on this huge new adventure in the middle of the country, you know. It was so cool. And I felt like it was such a momentous moment for me. And that's when I was like totally back on the podcast. I'm like, all right, here we go.
I love that. And what I will tell you is what you just described is one form of meditation.
Oh, see, I love that. Yeah.
It is. You knew you had a big day. You knew that you couldn't put your AirPods in. You knew this, but you sat down and it's like, I want to connect with what I will say is the frequency of that title. It called to you. It's like, wow, there's something about this title and this speaks to me, and I want to take my time, my effort, my energy, my focus, my attention, my awareness, my consciousness, and I'm going to direct it right here to this transcript. And in that amount of time, however much time you devoted to it, you were in a single focused meditative state, and that is a form of meditation. So when you are focused on something that is putting you in what's called a flow state, that is, you are really connected with your inner being. You probably felt a sense of peace, a sense of awe, a sense of enjoyment, a sense of pleasure, a sense of overwhelming good vibes. By the way, am I accurate that you felt that?
Yeah, I mean, Stephanie has that effect on people.
She does.
And like the whole episode was about authentic alignment. Ironically, you know?
Yeah. And so what's happening when your focus on is on that, and that's the frequency, what happens is it brought your level of consciousness up to that level, because that's where your conscious awareness was. That this is the power of meditation. It brought your frequency. If you look on again, this will even make so much more sense when you see this map of consciousness. But when you see this map, it brought you from below 200 all the way up to whatever the frequency is that you were feeling in that moment as you were reading the transcript. And it's that state that caused you to resonate. And when you are in that state, you're not thinking about your past. You're not thinking about your future. You're right there in the eternal present moment in what's called a flow state. This is meditation.
I love it.
Yeah. Cassandra, I so appreciate you reaching out and joining me today. Is there anything else you want to bring up? Any other question, any other dialogue you want to have? There is no rush here.
I don't I don't think so.
Great.
I mean, there's 100 million things, right? But it can all wait for another day. Like, yeah, just a million esoteric questions that I would love to have the honor to pick your brain about for many times to come.
Well, I want to stress right now, if you are not pressed for time, I'm not currently pressed for time. So, by all means, if you have some questions you want to ask, I'm delighted to entertain anything. But also, if you are pressed for time and you need to run, I feel no pressure to stay, and you're welcome to join me anytime.
Awesome. Well, I do have one thing. It's like, okay, how, when you are trying to put energy towards something, even just creatively, and it's not working out, you, how do you know when the universe is kind of trying to tell you, look, I'm putting these roadblocks up for a reason, or you just need to keep pushing through it? How can you tell sometimes if you're in alignment or not?
That's a great question. How do I know when I'm in alignment or not? I think
I
the
know generally when it's like totally aligned and all the signs are there, that's easy, right? But sometimes things don't come so easily.
yeah. Well, I'm in a season, so right now what I can tell you is what I've recently decided to do, which by the way, I've shut down my paid mastermind groups, and I've decided that I only want to do a certain type of coaching, and I only want to do things that feel fully aligned. One of the things that I can tell you right now is we have not yet had all of the signs that are clearly indicating from the universe, this is your stamp of approval. Here's all of the things that says this is the right path for you. So right now there is a great deal of uncertainty about a number of different areas. And yet what I can tell you right now, while there's no evidence to support that I don't even believe there is a right path or a wrong path, but there's no evidence yet to support that this is going to work out. This is going to go great. This is exactly what you need to do. What I will tell you is that I am going to continue to go down this path, and I will continue to press for what my soul desires to create until my soul no longer wants to pursue it anymore. So when I think about, I had this experience. I did not have this language. I did not have the understanding of all the different dimensions spiritually of this stuff back in the day. But when I left my career as an insurance agent, I, I went a whole year with all of the evidence from the outside, from the perception of so many people, that I had made the most reckless, horrible decision to leave my career as an insurance agent. I made $11,000 net income, was on food stamps, and I was working myself literally almost to death and landed in the hospital where I almost died. So how did I mean, obviously, at some point, many people would say, Cliff, now's the time to finally understand the universe is closing the door on this. You need to go back to the family business and start selling insurance again so that you can take over the insurance agency when your dad dies. And that's how you got this guaranteed path. That's the door the universe is obviously opened for you. Do you understand how many people would perceive that?
Hmm.
But did I take that path?
No.
No. I After I got out of the hospital, I continued to go the way my soul called me. It was still aligned. It was like I know for a fact. In fact, I looked back and I did not perceive 2008 as a failure. I'm like, "Wow, this is amazing." After 1 year, my first year in business, I actually have my very first P&L statement for my first 12 months in business, and it's in the positive. Now, sure, it did not pay this guy named Cliff Ravenscraft as the sole employee of the business at the time any payroll for the first 9 months. But man, it did generate thousands of dollars every month, and it paid for all of these expenses that were covered under business expenses that allowed our family to do things that the business could pay for, but it was still related to business. It was able to pay for all of these different things. It paid for health insurance and blah blah blah. And wow, what a gift it was to know that there was food on the table thanks to the assistance of food stamps. And there's so much of the story about how we had to end up paying that back. That was so funny. But anyway, it's just like I came out of that year, it's like wow, and I didn't die, and I have an opportunity to take this, what I've learned, and say maybe I need more margin in my life. Maybe this might be a wake-up call that I need to get over my fear of demonic influence from new age people and start reading some self-help books. Literally, I thought that I was conditioned to believe that Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and every other self-help book was evil and demonic and would lead you straight to the pits of eternal damnation. And I it was almost dying in the hospital and still clearly knowing there's no way I'm turning back and going back to the safe path of insurance. I know for a fact this is my path. I refuse to give up what makes my soul sing. And I will learn, and I am going to overcome these limiting beliefs about Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and then the myriad of hundreds of personal and professional and spiritual development books that I've read since.
That's so funny you phrase it that way because I literally was thinking as you were describing that it doesn't almost doesn't matter what the outcome is. You kind of just have to do whatever makes your heart sing, so that you can sleep at night and there's just happiness in that alone.
It, and I think when you say you kind of just have to, what I would encourage you to say is I kind of just have to, because I'm in full agreement with that. For me, what you just said fully
Yeah,
resonates. But
yeah.
here's the thing. It's just as valid for somebody else to have fear, anxiety, and worry about pursuing the unknown. And for them, they've chosen the path of predictable, reliable, more believable paths to financial provision for their families and stuff like that. And it's that story, that narrative that allows them to sleep at night. So just because you and I have this is like, oh, I I I have to follow my soul. I have to do this. And yet some other people, I have so much more compassion for people who are not yet ready to make that leap.
Yeah, that's true and that's important. That is really important. And I guess I'm just trying to tell myself, you're right, that it's okay to fail. Don't even be worried about failing. You just kind of have to do it. You have to be authentic.
Absolutely. And that's the key. And again, it's okay to fail. I mean, what is failure? First of all, is there any such thing as failure? I mean, we all came into this life naked and with no resources. We're all going to leave this world, although we may take some clothes. Our body may be buried with some clothes or whatever, or I guess some people may be thrown into some sort of oven or something like that. But the reality is that there's nothing we acquire on this trip around this planet. The several the We're on this spaceship called Earth, revolving around the sun, and however many revolutions we make it on this spaceship going around the sun, whatever we accumulate, none of it is going with us.
Yeah, it reminds me, I'm sure you probably heard this saying, but there are people so damn poor, all they have is their money.
Yes, yes, I have heard that. And there's nothing wrong with having lots of money. I mean, there's an infinite number of ways that anyone could choose to experience life. I think the most important thing is, how do I want to express my opportunity to experience this human experience on this planet? And I love for me that I get to choose. And when I allow myself to choose without concern about the perceptions of others, all of a sudden I have no judgment about how other people choose to experience their human experience.
Yeah, because everybody's at a totally different stage in their life and learning and their own unique experience.
Yeah. So your original question, Cassandra, was how do you decide when you, maybe you need to just kind of pack it in and the universe is trying to tell you that the door is closed? That was the question paraphrased. Is there any kind of answer that you found from the dialogue you and I just had?
Well, yeah, I think the real answer is what's the intention? Like, why are you even trying to walk down this road? Because if you're trying to walk down it authentically because it's what you want, it you don't need to even look at the signs or you just keep going. But if it's because you're trying to maybe all these other things that aren't authentically you, It's maybe it's culture, society, money, whatever it is, then yeah, that's a whole different thing. So I guess maybe the question changes, right?
Yeah, and that's the beauty. You can always change your question, and you can always change your answers. My favorite experience of life in or perspective of life is that it is a choose your own adventure game.
Yeah, it definitely helped shift my perspective for sure. Into instead of thinking of it as like, okay, well, oh, is the universe trying to tell me not to do this? Am I missing signs? It's like, well, this is something I'm passionate about and I'm going to pursue it. And that's going to bring me joy. And that can be the end of the conversation about it with internally.
Yeah, I love that.
Because like you said, with the Twilight podcast, I don't, maybe people that don't do podcasting, it takes a lot of energy and effort and work. Those are things you're not getting paid for most of the time. You're not getting seeing a huge return on it, but you don't know years later that could come around for as a payoff, in so many different ways, like us being able to meet. And it's like you don't know the things you're putting your authentic, passionate energy into in the long run, they'll come back to you.
Absolutely. You want to hear something to give evidence to that fact?
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, have you ever heard of the Hunger Games podcast?
Yes.
Okay. So we also did the Hunger Games podcast. We did a chapter by chapter analysis of every book of every or of every yeah, of every book in the series of the Hunger Games, and I think we gave up on the movies because they were trash. But that's neither here nor there. We did cover all of the books. And you're right, we did not get paid a lot of money for any of that content. We did have what was called Plus membership at the time, and some people, a handful of people. But in the grand scheme of things, if we compare the amount of time, effort, and energy to publish 7 to 15 podcast episodes a week, what we were getting paid, I could have worked at McDonald's and made exponentially more. Just saying. So, to your point. However, I'm going to read to you a letter that was included inside of an envelope with a check. Are you ready? July 27th, 2011. Please accept this contribution for GSPN Plus membership, which, by the way, we had just decided to stop charging everyone, and we decided to give 100% of all of our content away for free. And we said we still are going to have Plus membership, but you can pay whatever you want. And if you pay $1 one time and never anything, you are considered a Plus member for life. So that's that we had gone from if you want to be a Plus membership and have access to only this private content that's only available to these people, you have to pay $10 a month. Well, I was making so much money over on the podcast Answer Man side that I hated that we were creating such amazing content and people weren't getting it because some people couldn't afford it. So I made the decision to just give it away for free. In fact, administrating the software that managed the membership cost me more money than I was bringing in. So we decided to give it away for free. So imagine that we had just announced that GSPN.TV Plus membership is a voluntary contribution, any amount, and $1 gets you granted lifetime status as a GSPN Plus member. So here's what it says. Cliff, please accept this contribution for GSPN Plus membership. I learned of GSPN.TV a few months ago when I began doing research about online digital audio content delivery, podcasts, and podcasting, internet-based talk radio, and the associated applications, desktop and mobile, that provide this. I found Podcast Answer Man first, and then, of course, I was able to learn about and enjoy so many of your other podcasts. A friend of mine was reading The Hunger Games at the time I came across GSPN, and we began reading the book together and listening to your Hunger Games podcast. You may be a bit surprised at the amount of my GSPN Plus membership contribution. There are many reasons for this, and certainly too many to be involved in a full explanation in this letter. While there may be ways you can help me some way down the road, with a possible business idea I have, that would be a separate consulting arrangement where I would purchase your time or other products or services specifically for that purpose. The most important thing right now is that you know and understand you have already earned the full amount of this contribution. All of the work that you have done since you started GSPN has earned the contribution that I have made. I'd certainly be more than happy to speak to you and tell you more about myself, my background, my business, my ideas. And although I don't know a great deal about building and growing and making an online business a success, I do have about 25 years of business and entrepreneurial experience. My software company brings in about $12 million in annual revenue. And I've gotten to a point where without even have to work at all, much at all, I make several $1,000,000 each year in personal income. I remember the passion I had when I started my business many years ago, and what you are doing with GSPN, not Podcast Answer Man, what you are doing with GSPN reminds me so much of that. I was just thinking what you are doing is great, and I would love to see it continue to succeed. Congratulations on creating something so exceptional. Sincerely, Stuart Crane. That letter, that envelope contained a check for $12,000.
Oh my God, that is so heartwarming.
Yeah.
How did it feel to have to be acknowledged like that, to have someone see the impact that you're trying to make on people?
It rocked my world. It's like, wow. And this came in what did I say? This was in 2011. So we had just, I mean, things has just started taking off, and that's why, Podcast Answer Man. But the question was like, man, why have we devoted so many countless hours to all this content with GSPN, and it just doesn't seem to be paying off or whatever. But I what this did was wake me up to the fact that there is something so powerful and so profound that's going on with this content that Stephanie and I create together around these things that don't logically make a lot of sense unless we have sponsors or advertisers or some big monetization where it makes a lot of sense to put countless hours into this. But this is one of those examples that reminds me of why I'm going to tell you, Cassandra, this. What I'm doing right here, right now, in these live streams, with no expectation, no ulterior motive. There's no sales funnel. There's no transactional thought in my mind. Um, this, what I'm doing right now, is like what I did when the decision we made to start giving away all of our GSPN content available for free. Because we gave it all away for free, and we continued to produce the content. It was still a very big part of our life. We were still publishing around still about 7 to 15 podcast episodes a week. But we weren't doing it for the money anymore because the money was kind of taken care of from Podcast Answer Man at that point. It was still something we felt drawn to do.
Yeah, you just have that passion for it at some point, and with podcasting, that's how I went into it too. And I felt I wasn't making any money off of it, and I never intended to. It was just for fun. And it enriched my life so much, just the people I was able to connect with. And I did nostalgia. I do nostalgia. So it was fun, watching old cartoons and just having that experience. And my goal was to help people that are stuck at work or maybe on a long drive and give them something to listen to, like my favorite podcast do for me. And for it to be positive. And over time, I kind of succumbed to being shaped by the algorithm and getting into that more dark content or things that people will click on, and got more successful that way. And then I realized one day, oh, I hate podcasting. I don't want to be creative. I just want to run away to the woods. And I was like, wow, because this isn't authentic, at all. This isn't what I started out with, the intention, and I'm just kind of trying to chase quote unquote success when in reality, my definition of success needed to shift, and I'm still in the midst of that. Like, and this is all really helping me work through that and towards that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been through ebbs and flows with the desire to try to expand and grow and scale and gain as many people's attention and all this other stuff. And for me, I can tell you every single time I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and discover how to do proper keywords research, and I'm going to search proper tags, and I'm going to do all of this other stuff. And it's just like there's this part of me that's just dying inside. It's like sucking my will to live. Do you remember Wayne's World? And you had Wayne and Garth are in there, and he's got the haircut machine that's connected to the vacuum cleaner. Are you aware of that reference at all?
Yeah.
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 So Garth says, "You're sucking my will to live," and that's how I felt every time I tried to play the algorithm games.
Exactly. And imagine doing, gossip. Like we talked a little bit earlier about gossip and just all of that kind of toxic,
You know,
low vibrational stuff.
that's hilarious. Okay, so you and I had direct messages early this morning, and do you know that I was not consciously aware and in remembrance of that actual detail when I actually brought up gossip?
Oh, that's funny because it really resonated with me
I,
because I'm like,
I
yeah,
it
exactly.
makes full sense. As soon as you just brought
Yeah.
this up, it's like, oh yeah, you did. And but when I was actually free flowing and telling you about the daily practices, I would blah blah blah, and I would definitely avoid anybody who gossips and all this. I forgot that you had an entire season of your life where you actually had a great deal of success bring about gossip into the world. It's like, but
Yeah, and it got
that's
to the
hilarious.
point it got to the point where I would be on the podcast and I'm like, you guys, I think this makes me a trauma vulture. I don't like this, you know?
Yeah.
And people, like you said, a lot of people kind of just are okay with that. And it's fine. And it can be a great escape for some people. But if I know it's something that's not making my heart sing, then yeah, I'm showing up inauthentically.
Yeah. I never got into gossip per se, but I there have been a few seasons of my life where I have been attracted to and hypnotically in the vortex of political uh right versus left kind of stuff, and all of a sudden like TikTok would take me down entire you pause too long on a video and they're like, "Oh, he liked that. Let's feed him more." And oh my gosh. There it's like, seriously?
And
I
that's hard. I
Yeah.
struggle with this because I do agree with you that we have to be mindful of what we're consuming, right?
Mhm.
And I've had many people that I look up to tell me that they do the exact thing that you've said, do not engage with that kind of stuff. But and the world news and things like that. But I have a sense of guilt around it. I feel, well, if I'm not informed, maybe I'm not going to make the best moves for myself. Like I think kind of like you said, sometimes spiraling out on those things leads to a breakthrough. Um, so that's where I struggle to find a balance of staying informed, but also not getting saturated in it all day, every day.
Yeah. And what I share from my perspective is what I found is my sacred path. My sacred path is I believe that I can impact and influence the world in a profound and positive way that would far outstretch my own ability to influence things with political action and protests and lobbying and all that other stuff. That's just my own. It's like for me personally. but there are others who are who their what lights them up is to be an activist for and and a catalyst for change. And so again, these are the things that I'm learning through my own journey, is that because it doesn't resonate with me to participate in partisan politics, just because that is absolutely, it's seemingly, at least in this season of my life, has absolutely nothing to do with my path on this planet. But I don't have any judgment for those who are fully engaged. And I do recognize that I benefit in many ways in this human experience based upon people who are out there actively engaged in the world of politics and government leadership and all this other stuff. And so if there's anything, it's like, you know, this is, I try not to label, you know, getting involved in you know, algorithms that bring you the things that tell you that this side has got this going on, this side has got this going on, and it brings a lot of division. And there's nothing that one could make a case that a little bit of rage and a little bit of desire to see things change, which while it may be below 200 on the scale of level of consciousness, it can trigger you and catapult you to do something that actually causes you to have motivation and courage and willingness to get involved. And so there is so much nuance. And if there's anything that I've learned, I personally have found that I do not want to label anything as neither good nor bad. Uh, this is the appropriate thing to do, and this is the destructive thing to do. There just is the flow of life, and what
Yeah.
is.
But that's a lot harder than just putting it into boxes, Cliff. Come on, having nuance is very hard sometimes, you know. But no, I know you're right about that. And I I did feel motivated. I recently left Florida. Left the South and went and moved up north because I could have better access to healthcare and schools. I have kids, and one of them is severely autistic, nonverbal. And I wanted to be able to afford a home. And I was able to take myself from being in an apartment to buying my own house on my own, you know? And that was so empowering. And but I don't know if I would have even thought to make that move if I didn't get panicked by kind of that overstimulating news. But now that I look back as well, a lot of those things that I thought were going to be the world is ending were not world ending. Um,
but
so
they,
may-
but they still played a vital role in your catalyst for your own change.
yeah, big time.
And this is, there's a old Buddhist story or a Zen poem or whatever, and then it's this guy who lives in a town, and he's like, you know, hey, your son, you know, it's like this thing one thing happens, and somebody says, oh wow, that's so unfortunate, and the guy says, maybe not, and then another thing happens, and it's like, oh, that's so unfortunate. So one of them is that this wild horse comes. I'm gonna totally make up the story because I don't recall all the details, but this will at least illustrate the metaphor here. So let's just say this horse comes into this man's pasture, and it's like, oh my gosh, what a great, it's this horse, and the people in the town says, oh man, what a great fortune, what a great thing. This is so fortunate that this happened, that you have this horse that now is yours, that you can till the land with. And it's like, maybe not. So this son gets on the horse and is trying to get the animal to calm down and stuff like that. But the son is kicked off the back of the horse, and he breaks his leg. And so the people in town say, oh my gosh, that is so unfortunate. That is so bad that this has happened to you. I am so sorry. He goes, maybe not. And then all of a sudden there's a war that's taken place, and the people and the government officials come through the town, and they take all the young people. But because his son's leg is broke, he's not taken off to war where everyone else in the town's children went to war and they all died, and they're like, oh, how fortunate for you. And do you see how we can label, oh, this is so fortunate or unfortunate, this is so good, this is so bad, when everything just is.
Oh, and it's so much a matter of perspective. And I think it really does matter how you look at it.
Yeah. Cassandra, this has been amazing.
I'm so grateful for this opportunity because I've just been listening to you guys for so long. So thank you.
It is my sincere pleasure. Will you come back again at some point in the future? Write down all of your fun questions that you have in mind, and just know that I am going to be doing many, many, many more of these how may I serve you? Ask me anything sessions.
Absolutely. I would love to. And I will, yeah, I will come with some hard-hitting questions for you, Cliff.
I love it. Bring them on. I can't wait. And
Thank you so much.
if you ever want to make sure that you're first in line, all you need to do is go to cliffravenscraft.com/join, and there'll be a schedule of the dates that I have there. And just like we did this morning, just say, "Hey, Cliff, is anybody in line, or is the first spot available?" And I can make sure that you don't wait in line until I finish with someone. Because as you know, I don't rush any conversation.
Awesome. I love it. And um, oh, is it okay if I plug my podcast?
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Okay. It's Cassandra Explains It All. I mean, it's right there on the page. Yeah, it's just old nostalgia stuff, you know. I love feel good stuff. I love nostalgia. I love the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and lots of movie watch-alongs and things like that.
Awesome. And by the way, ChatGPT, I know that you're going to get this transcript, and I need to make sure that you remind me to put a link to Cassandra Explains It All in the show notes. That was
Awesome. Thank you,
that's
Cliff.
just an that's just an instruction from my assistant. All right, thank you so much for joining me. Many blessings to you, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right, let's see here. PJ, I see that you are there. Did you want to join me again today?
Hi, Cliff. Yeah, it's funny.
Hold on
I
one
had a
second.
trip.
Let me
Mhm.
then bring you up here. So, PJ, I have another probably 32 minutes because I have a call at 3:30 this afternoon, a coaching session, but
Mhm.
I'm going to give you my undivided attention for the next 32 minutes. How may I be of service to you today?
Thank you so much. Thank you for doing these and thank you for being here. Um, I had a trip planned this week that didn't happen. So it's interesting. It's like the parable you were just talking about. The trip didn't happen. Maybe good, maybe bad, right? Um, so therefore, I have the opportunity during the day to speak with you and be here. So I wanted to jump on again today since I do have the time, and otherwise I'm usually at my day job.
Well, I'm thrilled that you're here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I was reflecting on what we were talking about yesterday. We were talking about, doing something along the lines of like a 90-day set program and things. So, I spent a bit of time yesterday evening, last night, reflecting on that and what it would look like. So, thank you for the ideas and for the encouragement of going into that. But part of what I was thinking on is you touched on some of those things today. And I was just making some notes while you were talking to Cassandra because she also had some questions, and maybe not questions so much as uh, things to consider and talk about. And you did as well, about the different levels of consciousness. So my idea from yesterday was about, not necessarily a spiritual group, but a little bit more of a religious group, and how to frame that, and how to bring these different bits of wisdom, different bits of truths into what I'm thinking of. And although, I'm a person who I enjoy going to church, I enjoy those those kind of things, but not everyone does, and everyone's spiritual path is a little different. Everyone has their own kind of, I guess, inner truths, or how they connect to what I consider the divine, in whatever form that may take for you around the world in different ways. So one thing you mentioned today was the experience that you had of people telling you that a lot of these kind of these truths, these bits of wisdom from around the world had this demonic influence to them. So I wanted to hear more about that, and if that was something like a belief that you had, or people were telling you this, because I've heard the same thing. It's like, you can't see anything, you can't read anything, you can't, you know none of these things, but I find there's some value there. And what's the difference between being a student of some of these other things, different cultures, different philosophies, versus practicing those things for yourself. So that's where I'm starting today.
I love it. We're going to start with something light.
Yes, exactly.
If you were to form it into a specific conversation, that a question, the context is there. So
Mhm.
form it into a question for me.
I guess the question is, why would there be wisdom, value, truth in so many things that I feel like God created all of these things? Why is, and it tells you in the Bible, certainly, why is the path so narrow? Why can't we incorporate some of these other things? Why do we have to get rid of all that? So that's what I'm struggling with, because I have more of a broader perspective, or broad belief system. And why do I need to, some people are saying, and some people, throw that all away. It's all demonic. Don't listen to that. Don't, you know, do any of that. All you need to do, what I mentioned yesterday, just read the Bible, and that's it. Well, that's overwhelming and very daunting task to read the entire thing, to try to figure out, interpret, you know, where are the answers, which I'm sure they're all in there, but you know what I mean.
So if I'm trying to pinpoint what your question is why is there a perception that the road is so narrow that I can only read the Bible and everything else is potentially tainted by the deceiver who will speak all sorts of things your ears want to hear, that ring of truth, but he is the deceiver who is going to lead you astray with all of this knowledge.
Yes, like and I don't know what verse it is, but about the itching ears,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I don't know that I have the answer to that question.
Mhm.
Why those people, using your phrase,
Sure.
have that perception. Now, I could clearly go to my decades of study of the Bible
Mhm.
and tell you that it very clearly says the gate is narrow, the path is narrow that leads to life, and many people will be led astray. I mean, I could lead you to at least 20, 15, 20 different scriptures that could validate why I might believe that reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and a number of other self-help development books that seem to engage people in the idea of meditation and visualization and uh, all sorts of things that are closely akin to divination and the occult and all of this other stuff, and why all of that is demonic and why all of that should be avoided. So it's not the purpose of what I want to do here, which is to give an argument in defense of why you should avoid, why you should stick with the Bible only and avoid anything that's not of the Bible. You should avoid any other religious text, any other faith tradition that is not the one true only path to salvation, which is a belief in this doctrinal creed of the evangelical fundamentalist whatever church. I will say, though, that for many decades of my life, that was my belief system. Not only had I been conditioned and taught to believe those things, I actually there are people that walk this planet today that have those beliefs because I helped instill it in them. I used to, from the time I was 18 years old until 2011, I led Bible study groups. So I don't know how old, what year it was, 1991. So from 1991 until 2010, put however many years that is, I led weekly Bible study groups. And so over that period of time, there were young adults. Some of them in the earlier years, they were teenagers like me, and sometimes even younger kids, that I would help instill the fear of God and the fear of anything that's outside of God in them. Because that's what was done for me, and it was for my good, and I felt like it was for their good. And I guess maybe I will answer the question of why is it that belief system is so prevalent? Is because, well, I didn't hear it from God that that's how I should approach life and knowledge and wisdom that is contained within the world, but it's what I was taught from people who I believe genuinely taught me those things because they believed them to be true, and they thought it was for my best interest and my good, eternal salvation, that I learn these things. And I believe that those people, when they were younger or some earlier state in their journey, had somebody that they trusted that wanted to share with them the best that they had available to teach them the things to live the most beneficial, God-fearing life that would benefit you and everyone around you. And that belief system came from them, and I believe that those people were taught and conditioned from people before them, and it's going to go all the way back. Now, one of the things I will share with you is I'm going to consider what you and I are having as a one-on-one dialogue. So I'm going to speak to you only at the level that you and I are here sharing together. But I'm also very keenly aware that there are some people also watching this live stream that are also going to watch the replay and also listen to this conversation in a podcast episode. And one of the things that you may see or witness if you've watched all of my content here, you'll find that I will have a conversation with somebody who is a hardcore evangelical fundamentalist Christian who believes wholeheartedly all of the things that it's like, Cliff, here's my thing. I'm tempted to just set the Bible aside and go all gung-ho into this new age practice and stuff like that, but I know that that's not good for me, and I know that's not what God wants for me, and I need help to avoid that temptation. And do you know what I'm going to do, PJ? I'm going to help them live in alignment with what they believe to be true. I'm going to help them fight the temptation to do the thing that their heart, their mind is telling them is wrong. And so one of my clients that I worked with for a year is a Hasidic Jew. And one of the things that I did as soon as I started working with him, I went and asked him, I said, tell me about one of your holy texts. I want to understand your beliefs. I want to understand your world. And so he told me about a book called The Gate of Trust. And so I went and got this book, and I started reading it and studying it, and I had ChatGPT help analyze it and help me understand some of the beliefs and the concepts. And so when he came to me with issues about being a father and being a husband and being a business owner and some of his motivations and his fears and anxieties, I knew he knew these scriptures inside and out. So when working with him, I said, doesn't it say in the Gate of Trust this? He's like, how did you know that? I said, well, I told you, I got the book. I've been studying. And so do you believe this is true? He goes, well, yes, I do. I said, well, then how does that impact your decision between this and this? Well, if I believe that to be true, then I should obviously do this. I was like, how does that feel? Does that feel aligned for you? He goes, yeah, it feels exactly right. I forgot all about that line in there. Like, there you go. And so I'm going to help that person with that. So I want you to understand that you are obviously considered yourself to be more broadened from that, even though you're in circles where you understand people hold that belief. And so what I witness for you is you're straddling this world of, I've got these people who say all of this stuff is evil and demonic, and yet personally, I am intrigued by some of the powerful concepts and things like that. And for me, I was there from 2009 through 2011. No, that's not true. 2009 to 2020. So what is that, 11 years? So for 11 years of my life, I decided that I was going to suspend my belief that Think and Grow Rich was demonic. And so I started reading the book. And as soon as I start reading the book and it starts talking about universal consciousness and all of this other stuff, it triggered all sorts of stuff inside of me. It's like, I shouldn't be reading this. Why can't this guy just call it God? It's obviously the Father. It's God. This is God. Why can't you give God credit here? And I was so triggered by it. But what helped me in those early days was to say this: okay, I don't have to believe that the author of this book is right about everything, but if there is anything that's true in this book, Think and Grow Rich, it's true because God made it true. So what I'm interested in is not Napoleon Hill's philosophy of God, source energy, universal consciousness, and all of that new age woo-woo stuff. That stuff makes me sick to my stomach, is how, literally, these are the dialogues I'm having, not only with myself. I have podcast episodes, me talking about this stuff. All right? Those exact words were coming through my mouth. But that guy would have called me today a heretic. So, and a false teacher and all this other stuff. It's hilarious. But here's the thing, though. I said, if it's true, it's true. And if Napoleon Hill has devoted decades of his life to accumulating truth and put it together in a book, but he wrapped it up in some of his New Age philosophy language. I can actually discern through the gift of the Spirit that God has given me of discernment. I can discern what is true, and I can ignore all of the things that are clearly out of alignment with what I know for a fact to be true about God. And so that's how I began that journey. And that's how I began the next book and the next book and the next book. And yeah, I did find a very common thing. Back when I was in high school, I was attending this church. It was about 18, 19 years old. And they were like, listen, the worst thing that's ever happened is all of this New Age philosophy, all this self-help movement. And so they're like, stay away from this, stay away from this. And sure enough, I did find common themes. It's like it seems like every self-help personal development book seems to talk about this thing called universal consciousness and meditation, where you empty your mind, and transcendental meditation, and all of this other, I mean, just like very esoteric, mystical things that seem very occultish and that I've been trained. And I could actually have Bible verses that say, stay away from all of this. And so what I did is I said, God, I'm going into this. I ask for your protection. I hope that you will help me discern truth and help me avoid anything that might lead me astray. I trust in you fully. And I went down the path against my programming, against my conditioning, and I pursued the truth that is in these books. And they started to radically change my experience of life. These things became true. And over time, you know, I it's like, wow. And then I started to meet people who are actually very much into the New Age and all this other stuff, and from other spiritual traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and Sikhism, and all these other isms around the world, and then shamanism, and then just plain New Age spiritual people. And what I found amazing to me, this is my own experience, is that there are a much higher percentage of the people I know who identify with these other spiritual paths that live the Christ-like attributes that the Bible encourages us to incorporate into our experience of life, that far exceed my own experience, and not just one church, but multiple. I have a quite diverse background. And I'm like, how is that possible? I've been taught that, you know, these people are but they're some of the kindest, most generous, most compassionate, most loving, most caring, most giving people I've ever met. And they do not have a confession of Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior. And they do not read the Bible, and they do not have any respect for the Bible as any authority at all. How is this possible? And so I had to, what do I do with all of that? Now, PJ, if it worries you that ultimately, what some people say, well, Cliff, if you go down this path and whatever, ultimately you might find yourself breaking away from your beliefs in God and salvation and eternal life and all this other stuff. And I'll just be transparent and authentic and tell you that about 80% of what I believed to be absolute truth that's undeniable, I no longer subscribe to as a hardcore belief today. And so with that, know that what people warned me of when I was 18 years old, you start reading that, and eventually it will lead you astray. Well, from my perspective back then, the guy that you're talking to today has been led astray. But that's only from that perception. From where I sit today, I don't feel like I've been led astray. So for me, what really helped me is in 2020, during the pandemic, I believe I was divinely guided to a book. called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And I'm going to go to BibleGateway.com. And if you were to ask me, Cliff, do you believe in reincarnation? Before I read that book, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think the possibility is that you may have lived multiple lifetimes before this human experience? On a scale of 1 to 10, how possible do you think that that's actual true? And if before reading that book, it was a 0. It wouldn't even, I don't even think it's a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. It is a 0. It is out. That is bold lie of the devil. By the end of reading that book, I was somewhere between a 7 or an 8 out of 10. I think there's a very high likelihood that that could very much. And in fact, when I began studying, after I finished reading that book, I read a book called The Second Coming of Christ, the Resurrection of Christ. It's actually called The Resurrection of Christ, the Second Coming of Christ, the Resurrection of Christ Within You, a revelatory commentary on the original teachings of Jesus, which is a 2-volume commentary on the 4 Gospels from a Hindu perspective. And I'm like, huh. And this opened up my way of thinking in a whole different way. So Romans 8:38. All of a sudden, here's the situation that I had come up with. And I want the full chapter. Romans 8:38. That's going to be what I want. All right, so here it is. So what happened is now all of a sudden I'm exploring things that's taking me outside of the boundaries of the safety that my psyche felt from what I had been conditioned to believe would be eternal torment and damnation if I didn't believe the right thing and stay in alignment with certain truth. And now I'm being confronted with things that are causing me to question those beliefs. And I had a lot of fear and anxiety about that. And then all of a sudden, I was praying about it. I was journaling, and I heard the voice within. For me, it was clearly the voice of God that said, turn to Romans. And I came to Romans, and I came across Romans 8:38 and 39. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. So as I read that, I'm like, okay, so there's nothing. There's no demon. There's no holy text. There's no self-help book. There's no genuine, curious, I have a pure heart and want to discern what is right and going to allow me to live the life that God most wants me to live and experience in this world. It is my genuine desire. I have a pure heart, but yet I've been taught that if I read these other people's texts and these other people's worldviews, that I'm going to, but clearly it says, no, neither angel, no demon, neither present nor future, nor any powers, no powers at all, neither height or anything in creation will be able to separate me from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. And so with that, I went into the deepest dive study of all things that had been off of the buffet of life when it came to understanding God, source, all that is, energy, light. And I began to study Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, Taoism, shamanism, mysticism, and every form of New Age spirituality. I invested thousands of hours from 2020 to present devouring this stuff. And so this is exactly where it led me. And what I will tell you is I no longer believe the things that I once believed. If there are some things I'll volunteer. I no longer believe in eternal damnation. I don't believe in that. I need to be saved from hell. That there. I do, however, believe that Christ is the only way to true understanding of eternal life and oneness with the Father, or source of all that is. And I believe that Jesus was a full embodiment of the Christ consciousness. And so there's a way of seeing what I studied for the first 4 decades of my life. I started when I was about 7 or 8 years old, investing countless hours reading the Bible. As soon as I was told, as I think I was 8 years old, I was either 7 or 8. As soon as I was told I was going to burn in hell at that Southern Baptist church in Montgomery, Alabama, I became a Bible student. And I will tell you, for decades, I read that Bible, and I could only perceive the words on that Bible, from the lens of the theological doctrines of the Protestant evangelical fundamentalist variations of the churches that I grew up in. I had questions. I had that nobody could seem to answer. I went to the equivalent of seminary through Nazarene Bible College. They had no answers for certain things. They had workarounds. They could point me to people who have written books about people who have written books who could finally explain it if you knew all of the original languages and all this other stuff. And then you just had to put your faith in that. But it's still, none of it landed. But all of a sudden, I start to be exposed to all of these other ways of perceiving the potential and seeing God and source or creation through whole lots of different lenses. And as I began to study all of these different spiritual paths, I saw, wow, they are all talking about the same exact thing. They are all saying exactly the same thing. They just have different language. And that's where I am. So I gave you a very long monologue to your question, which wasn't quite framed as a direct question. But PJ, as I share all of that, what comes up for you?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all of that. And yeah, I'm coming back from that. So having been studying some of these different worldviews for a while, and then kind of coming back from my experience was I grew up across the street from the First Baptist Church. So so coming back to that, and I'm like, well, do I really want to discount all that? And so I love
Do I really
the,
want to
the
discount all of that? Do you mean the stuff you picked up in the Baptist church?
no, the other stuff.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, all the other stuff, all the other worldviews, all the, it's just like you said, it's very similar. We're getting to the same concept of God as an ultimate creator and a Christ consciousness worldview. And I love the passage from Romans where it says that there's ultimately nothing that can separate you from God. If that's what you have, if that's what's in alignment with you and that's what you have in your heart, there's nothing that will separate you from that. And you have that and have been given the gift of discernment.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here today. I know your time is short, but I appreciate you and Miss Stephanie so much for all you do.
It is my pleasure, and I invite you to come back anytime. Normally, if I didn't have a call at 3:30 today, we would continue this conversation for as long as you have available, because I would love to continue this dialogue. But I invite you back anytime you want to, but never feel any pressure. But it's just a joy, PJ, to have you here. Thank you for bringing your authenticity, your trust. I know for a fact you will find a way to integrate all of the truth that your soul desires to have to share with those you feel called to serve. That is the clearest thing that I know for a fact that I can tell you. You will find a way to integrate all of the truth that you have been exposed to for the benefit of those you have been called to serve.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
I'll
PJ.
receive that.
Awesome.
Thank you, Cliff.
Have a good one, and
Take
we'll
care.
talk again soon, I'm
You as
sure.
well.
Guys,
Yes, sir. Take care.
all right, you too. Guys, thank you so much for another amazing session today. What a gift it is to be here with you, to do what it is that just feels so aligned. I asked myself one day, if money were no object, and I never had to concern myself about anything financially, what would I do? And the answer was clear. I would show up on a consistent basis with no transaction, no ulterior motive, just to be present and serve anyone and everyone. And I would do it as my purest, most authentic, most transparent, most vulnerable self, without any fear or concern or worry about how I would be perceived by anyone. And you know what? I'm not in a place financially where that's my reality, but I am in a place where I can still choose to do this every day. So that is why I'm here. Many blessings. I will be back on Monday. There's a couple of dates next week that I will be here. I think on Friday I'm going to be out, but check out next week's schedule for the live streams. If you have been watching either live and or on the replay and you would like to join me for one of these sessions, as you can see, there is no topic. I mean, you could bring up anything. We'll talk about anything. I'm here to be of any support or encouragement to you that I possibly can be. And I will quickly mention freethedreamworkshop.com. If you would like to spend 2 days with myself and Stephanie, where we are going to be helping people get very clear about what is their soul's greatest expression in the world, and what beliefs, thoughts, emotional patterns, whatever it is that's keeping you from living in full alignment with what you know you want to do in this world. And if you don't know what you want to do in this world, this workshop will help you learn how to do it. It's not why I'm doing this to promote it, but it doesn't seem very good stewardship if I don't mention that it's possible. And by the way, it's coming up on August 29th and 30th. That's a Friday and Saturday this month, August 29th and 30th. It's here in Northern Kentucky, which is right down the road from our home here. And it's pay what you want. There is no limit or minimum. You could go to freethedreamworkshop.com. It starts out at $0, and you could click the register button and you can come for free. So, freethedreamworkshop.com. Blessings.